My name is Maya Sterling, and despite everything I've achieved, I was never good enough for my family. But that night at my father's 65th birthday dinner, everything changed. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to walk away from someone who refused to see your worth. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last 8 years building my career as a federal prosecutor in Burlington, Vermont. Not exactly the legal powerhouse of New York or DC, but Burlington has its own quiet prestige, old money maple syrup fortunes, and enough white-collar crime to keep someone like me very busy. I work for the U.S. Attorney's Office, Northern District of Vermont, and I've made a name for myself prosecuting financial crimes, corporate fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, the kind of cases that make headlines and occasionally catch national attention. My father, Harrison Sterling, built his fortune in real estate development across New England. Sterling Properties owns half the ski resorts in Vermont and New Hampshire, plus luxury hotels that cater to the leaf-peeping crowd every fall. He's the kind of man who measures success in square footage and thinks respect is something you buy. With a bigger house, my older brother Marcus works for the company as VP of Development. He's 35, married to Bethany, who collects charity galas like stamps, and they have 2 children who attend private school costing more than most people's cars. I live alone in a restored Victorian in Burlington's Hill section, 15 minutes from the courthouse. My house is beautiful, hardwood floors, original crown molding, a kitchen I remodeled myself, but it's modest by Sterling family standards, which has always been the problem. The tension in our family runs deep. Every holiday, every gathering, every phone call somehow turns into a comparison. Marcus with his big house, his perfect family, his position in the family business. Me with my little government job and my stubborn independence. The invitation arrived on cream-colored cardstock with embossed gold lettering. Harrison Sterling's 65th birthday celebration at the family estate in Shelburne. Black tie optional, but knowing my father, it was black tie mandatory. I had been to a family dinner in 6 months. Not since Easter, when Marcus made a comment about my little government job and how I was wasting my potential by not joining the family business. My father nodded along, as he always did when Marcus spoke, but this was different. This was a milestone birthday, and despite everything, I loved my father. I wanted to honor him properly, to show him that his daughter had made something of herself, that my choice to pursue justice over profit had been worth I'd spent weeks planning. The perfect gift. My father is a collector, not of art or wine, but of experiences. He has a study filled with framed photographs from his travels, certificates from exclusive clubs, memorabilia from once-in-a-lifetime events. That's when I remembered the conversation we had years ago about his dream of owning a piece of racing history. He'd grown up watching NASCAR with his own father, and he'd always talked about wanting to own something from the sports golden. Year after months of networking through auction houses and private collectors, I found it. A 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona, one of only 503 ever made. It had been owned by a minor NASCAR driver in the early 1970s. And while it wasn't Dale Earnhardt's car, it was authentic, beautiful, and exactly the kind of unique piece my father would treasure. The car cost me $180,000, my entire savings, plus a loan I'd have to pay off over the next 5 years. But it was worth it to see the look on his face when he realized what I'd done. The Sterling estate sits on 40 acres overlooking Lake Champlain. The main house is a federal-style mansion built in 1847, with additions that have expanded it to nearly 12,000 square feet. Tonight, it was lit up like a museum, with valets parking cars and servers in bow ties, circulating with champagne. I arrived at 7, having spent the afternoon at the detail shop, getting the Charger polished to showroom condition. It was parked in the circular drive, covered by a custom car cover I'd had made with "Happy 65th Birthday." Gad embroidered in gold thread. The guest list was exactly what I'd expected. Business associates, country club friends, a few local politicians, and the extended family. Marcus and Bethany were holding court near the bar, their children running around in miniature formal wear. My father spotted me immediately. He was wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, and he had that particular smile. He reserved for public occasions, warm enough to look genuine, controlled enough to maintain dignity. Maya, there's my little prosecutor, he said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like expensive cologne and single malt scotch. You look beautiful, sweetheart. I was wearing a navy blue silk dress I'd bought specifically for tonight. Elegant, professional. Appropriate for a federal prosecutor who wanted to look sophisticated without overshadowing the birthday boy. Happy birthday, Dad, I said, handing him a small wrapped box. This is just a placeholder. Your real gift is outside. He opened the box to find a key fob with a small card that read, "For the man who taught me that some dreams are worth the wait." His eyebrows raised. Maya, what did you do? Come outside. And see, the crowd followed us onto the front portico. I could feel Marcus behind me, probably wondering what kind of spectacle his little sister was about to make. I pulled away the car cover with a flourish. And there it was, 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona, plum crazy purple with white racing stripes, chrome gleaming under the estate's landscape lighting. The crowd gasped. Someone started clapping. My father stood frozen, his mouth slightly open. It's authentic, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet gathering. 509 cubic inch Hemi V8, one of only 503 ever made. It has all the original documentation, and I've had it verified by 3 independent appraisers. My father walked slowly toward the car, running his hand along the hood. For a moment, I saw genuine emotion in his eyes. Surprise, joy, maybe even pride. Maya, this is incredible. How did you... I know how much you love racing history, I said. And I know how hard you've worked to give our family everything we have. I wanted to give you something that was just for you. He turned to face me, and for just a moment, I saw the man who used to read me bedtime stories and take me to the office on Saturdays when I was little. Before success and status became more important than connection, this must have cost a fortune. He said quietly, "It's worth it," I replied. "You're worth it." That's when Marcus stepped forward, and I knew immediately that something was wrong. His face had that look, the one he got when he felt threatened, when he needed to reassert his position as the golden child. "Jesus, Maya," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What are you trying to prove?" The warmth in my chest turned to ice. "I'm sorry?" "This whole performance," Marcus continued, gesturing toward the car. "You show up here with some flashy car, making a scene, trying to upstage everyone. It's embarrassing." I felt every eye in the crowd turn toward us. The murmur of conversation died completely. Even the servers stopped moving. "Marcus, I'm not trying to upstage anyone. I'm celebrating Dad's birthday. By throwing money around like you're some kind of big shot?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Come on, Maya, we all know you can't afford something like this. What did you do? Mortgage your little house? Max out your credit cards?" My father was standing between us now, but he wasn't defending me. He was just watching like this was entertainment. Like his children's pain was a spectacle for his guests. "Actually," I said, my voice steady despite the fury building in my chest, "I saved for this. I've been planning it for months." "Right," Marcus said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Because prosecutors make so much money. Face it, Maya, you're trying to buy Dad's approval, and it's pathetic. You've always been jealous that I'm the one who stayed and built something with the family business while you ran off to play lawyer." The crowd was completely silent now. I could feel their eyes on me, judging, measuring, waiting to see how I'd respond. "I'm not trying to buy anything," I said. "I'm trying to show appreciation for what?" Marcus interrupted. "For all the times Dad had to worry about you? For all the times you disappointed him by choosing your career over family? You think one expensive car makes up for years of putting yourself first? That's when Bethany decided to join the attack." She stepped forward with that fake sympathetic smile I've learned to hate. I think it's sweet, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. Maya is trying so hard to fit in. It's like when little kids buy their parents gifts with their allowance money, except she's a grown woman who should know better. The humiliation was complete. I looked at my father, waiting for him to say something, anything, to defend me or acknowledge what I'd done, to stand up for his daughter who'd just given him the gift of a lifetime. Instead, he cleared his throat and said, "Well, let's go inside. Dinner should be ready soon." Those words hit me like a physical blow. After everything, the months of planning, the financial sacrifice, the genuine love behind the gesture, he was dismissing it all too. Avoid confrontation. The dining room seated 24 people around a mahogany table that probably costs more than my car. I was placed between two of my father's business associates, far enough from the head of the table to make the hierarchy clear. Marcus spent the entire meal holding court, telling stories about his latest development projects, his kids' achievements, his wife's charity work. Every few minutes, he'd make another little dig at me, and each one landed like a knife. "Maya's so dedicated to her work," he said during the salad course. "She doesn't even have time to date." "Career first, right, Maya?" "I heard federal prosecutors don't make much," said one of the guests, a man I didn't recognize. "Is that true, Maya?" Before I could answer, Marcus jumped in. "Oh, she's doing fine. She's got her little house, her little job, her little life. She's very ... independent." The word little kept coming up. My little house, my little job, my little life. As if everything I'd accomplished was somehow diminished by the fact that I hadn't followed the family blueprint. "Must be nice having such a flexible schedule," another guest commented. "Government work, right? Banker's hours?" I tried to explain that I regularly worked 60-hour weeks, that I'd prosecuted cases that made national headlines, that I put dangerous criminals behind bars. But Marcus kept interrupting, minimizing, redirecting. "She's always been the rebel," he said with a laugh. "Even in law school, she could have gotten a job at any big firm, made real money. But Maya always has to do things the hard way." During the main course, Bethany decided to pile on. "I admire Maya's dedication," she said, her voice sweet as poison. "It takes real commitment to choose work over family. I could never do it. I need that connection, that sense of belonging." "Some people are just built differently, Marcus." "Agreed. Some people need to prove themselves constantly. They can't just be happy with what they have." I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and tell them all exactly what I thought of their small-minded, petty little world. But I didn't. I sat there, cutting my food into precise pieces, smiling politely, dying inside. During dessert, my father stood to make a speech. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he said, raising his glass of champagne. 65 years, and I'm surrounded by the people who matter most. My son Marcus, who's carrying on the family legacy. My daughter-in-law Bethany, who's brought such joy to our family. My grandchildren, who represent the future of everything we've built. He paused, looking around the table, and I held my breath. And Maya, who continues to surprise us. That was it, my entire acknowledgement. Who continues to surprise us, not who fights for justice, not who makes us proud. Not even who gave me an incredible gift tonight. Marcus raised his glass. To Dad, who taught us that family comes first, even when some people need reminding. The toast was repeated around the table. I lifted my glass but didn't drink. I couldn't. My throat was too tight, my heart too broken. After dinner, the party moved to the library for cigars and brandy. I found myself standing alone on the terrace, looking out over the lake, trying to process what had just happened. The cool October air felt good against my flesh skin. I was trying to decide whether to leave quietly or make a scene when Marcus found me. "You know," he said, lighting a cigar, "I actually feel sorry for you." I didn't turn around, do you? All this time, you've been trying to prove something. To Dad, to yourself, to everyone. But you don't get it. You never will. Get what, Marcus? That you're not one of us. You never were. You went to your fancy law school, got your fancy job, and you think that makes you special. But at the end of the day, you're still just Dad's disappointing daughter who chose strangers over family. I turned to face him, and for the first time that night, I let him. See my anger? I chose justice over money. I chose service over self-interest. I chose to build something meaningful instead of just inheriting it. Marcus laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. You chose to be alone. Look at you, Maya. 32 years old, no husband, no kids, no real relationships. You've got a government job that pays you a fraction of what you're worth, and you live in a house that's smaller than our guest cottage. Is that really what you call success? I call it independence. You call it isolation. He took a long draw from his cigar. And tonight, trying to upstage everyone with that car stunt, it was desperate. Everyone saw it. Dad saw it. You embarrassed yourself. That's when I realized something. Marcus wasn't just being cruel. He was terrified. Terrified that I might actually matter to our father. Terrified that my gift might mean something. Terrified that for once in his life, he might not be the center of attention. You know what, Marcus? I said, my voice deadly quiet. You're right. I did embarrass myself. I embarrassed myself by caring what you think. By trying to earn something that should have been freely given. I walked past him toward the house. Where are you going? He called after me. To get my keys. I found my father in his study alone, looking at the documentation I provided with the car. The certificates of authenticity, the appraisal reports, the historical records. Dad, I said from the doorway. He looked up, and for a moment I saw something like guilt in his eyes. Maya, the car is incredible, truly. I can't believe you did this. But you didn't defend me. He set down the papers and leaned back in his chair. Marcus was out of line. I should have said something. Yes, you should have. But you didn't. Just like you never do. Maya, you have to understand. No, Dad, you have to understand. I am a federal prosecutor. I've put away corporate criminals who've stolen millions of dollars. I've prosecuted corruption cases that made national news. I've been featured in legal journals and invited to speak at conferences. I own my own home. I have a career I'm passionate about, and I make a difference in the world. He nodded slowly. I know, I'm proud of you. Are you? Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like you're ashamed of me. Like I'm some kind of failure because I didn't join the family business. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you introduced me as your daughter, the prosecutor? When was the last time you asked about my work, my cases, my life? When was the last time you treated me like I mattered? The silence stretched between us, heavy with 32 years of disappointment. I never wanted you to feel like you didn't matter, but I do. I feel like I'm constantly trying to earn your approval, and it's never enough. Tonight, I spent my entire savings on a gift for you, and your son humiliated me in front of your friends. And you said nothing. I should have said something. You should have, but you didn't. And that tells me everything I need to know. I walked to his desk and picked up the car keys. I'm taking the car back? Maya, don't do this. Don't let Marcus ruin. Marcus didn't ruin anything, Dad. You did. By letting him. I walked back through the house, past the guests who were still drinking and laughing, past the family photos that lined the hallway, past the life I'd been trying to fit into for 32 years. Marcus was waiting by the front door, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. Going somewhere, he asked, getting my car. It's not your car anymore. You gave it to Dad. I held up the keys. Actually, the title is still in my name. I was going to sign it over after the party, but I've changed my mind. Marcus's face darkened. You can't just take it back. That's not how gifts work. Watch me. I walked past him toward the charger. He followed, along with several other guests who noticed the commotion. Maya, this is ridiculous, he called out. You're being a child. I got into the car and rolled. Down the window. The leather seats smelled like possibility, like freedom. You know what's ridiculous, Marcus? Spending your entire life trying to tear down the people who love you. Spending your entire life threatened by anyone who might accomplish something without your permission. I'm not threatened by you, no? Then why have you spent the last 2 hours trying to humiliate me? Why do you feel the need to diminish everything? I do? He didn't have an answer. For the first time in his life, Marcus Sterling was speechless. I started the engine. The Hemi V8 roared to life, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Tell Dad I'll talk to him when he's ready to have a real conversation, I said. One where I'm not apologizing for being successful. I drove home in silence, the Charger's engine purring like a satisfied cat. When I got to my house, I parked it in my garage and sat in my kitchen, still wearing my formal dress, drinking a glass of wine and thinking about what had just happened. My phone rang constantly. Marcus, my father, Bethany, a few family friends who'd witnessed the scene. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages were predictable. Marcus was angry, calling me selfish and dramatic. My father was pleading, asking me to come home, to talk, to work things out. Bethany was playing peacemaker, suggesting family therapy. I deleted them all. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was free. I called my assistant and told her to clear my schedule for the morning. Then I called a classic car dealer in Boston who'd been trying to buy the Charger from me since I'd purchased it. Is your offer still good? I asked. $200,000, he said immediately. Cash. I'll be there this afternoon. I drove to Boston, sold the car, and deposited the check. $20,000 profit for one night's work. Not bad for a little government job, but more importantly, I'd learned something valuable. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their recognition. I didn't need their love if it came with conditions. I needed to build a life that mattered to me. The phone calls continued for weeks. My father left increasingly desperate voicemails, asking me to come home to talk, to work things out. Marcus left angry messages, calling me selfish and dramatic. I ignored them all. Instead, I threw myself into my work. I took on bigger cases, more complex prosecutions. I stayed late, worked weekends, and poured all my energy into the pursuit of justice. 3 months later, something interesting happened. I was in federal court, prosecuting a major embezzlement case, when I noticed my father sitting in the gallery. He stayed for the entire proceeding, watching me question witnesses, present evidence, and argue to the jury. After the trial adjourned, he approached me outside the courthouse. Maya, he said quietly, I've been watching you work. I noticed. I had no idea. I mean, I knew you were good at your job, but I didn't understand what that meant. The way you handled that cross-examination, the way you commanded the courtroom, I've never seen anything like it. I looked at him, this man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to drive, who'd paid for my education, who'd somehow forgotten to be proud of me. This is what I do, Dad. This is who I am. I know, and I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. We stood there in the autumn air, two people who'd loved each other imperfectly for 3 decades. Marcus called last week, he said. He wanted to know if I'd heard from you. I told him no, and he said maybe it was better that way. That you'd always been difficult. And what did you say? I said he was wrong. I said you were the strongest person I knew, and I was ashamed of how I'd treated you. I felt something crack open in my chest. Dad, ... double quotes. I know I can't undo what happened. At the party, I can't take back all the times I should have stood up for you and didn't. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the woman you've become, the career you've built, the life you've created. Thank you, I whispered. Would you consider having dinner with me? Just the two of us. I want to hear about your cases, your work, your life. I want to know my daughter. I looked at this man who'd given me everything except the one thing I needed most, his unqualified support. I'd like that, I said. 6 months later, I was back in federal court for the biggest case of my career. A corruption scandal involving a sitting congressman, 3 state officials, and a web of bribes and kickbacks that stretched across New England. The investigation had taken 2 years. I'd worked with FBI agents, forensic accountants, and a team of prosecutors to build an airtight case. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, recorded conversations, email chains, and witness testimony that painted a picture of systematic corruption. The courtroom was packed with reporters, legal observers, and curious citizens. This was the kind of case that defined careers, the kind of victory that changed everything. And in the front row of the gallery, wearing a suit I'd helped him pick out, was my father. When the judge called the court to order, she said the words I'd been working toward my entire career. All rise for the Honorable Judge Catherine Morrison. Court is now in session with the United States of America versus Congressman Robert Henley, et al. The prosecution will be led by Assistant U.S. Attorney Maya Sterling. I stood at the prosecution table, feeling the weight of the moment. This was it. The culmination of months of investigation, weeks of preparation, and years of building the skills and reputation that had brought me to this point. As I delivered my opening statement, I caught my father's eye. He was smiling, not the controlled public smile I'd grown up with, but a real smile, a proud smile. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I began, we are here today because some people believe the law doesn't apply to them. They believe that power and position placed them above the rules that govern the rest of us. They are wrong. For the next hour, I laid out the case with precision and passion. I showed the jury how Congressman Henley had sold his vote for campaign contributions, how he'd steered contracts to his friends, how he betrayed the public trust for personal gain. The defense tried to paint him as a victim of overzealous prosecution, but the evidence was too strong. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. When the verdict was read, the courtroom erupted in applause. It was the kind of case that defines a career, the kind of victory that changes everything. Afterward, as I packed up my files, the judge approached me. Excellent work, counselor, she said. I've been watching your career for some time. Have you ever considered applying for a judicial appointment? I looked at her, this woman who'd spent her career fighting for justice, who'd risen to the highest levels of the legal profession. I hadn't thought about it. Think about it. The federal bench needs prosecutors like you. People who understand that justice isn't about winning cases, it's about serving something larger than yourself. That night, my father took me to dinner at the finest restaurant in Burlington. Not to celebrate his success, but to celebrate mine. So, he said over dessert, Judge Maya Sterling. Has a nice ring to it. It's just a suggestion at this point. It's normal. It's a destiny. He raised his glass. To my daughter, who taught me that success isn't about building an empire. It's about building a life that matters. I raised my glass to meet his, to family. The one we're born into and the one we choose to become. 6 months later, I received a call from the White House. The president was nominating me for a federal judgeship in the District of Vermont. At 33, I would be one of the youngest federal judges in the country. The confirmation hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday in December. My father flew to Washington to attend, along with Marcus Bethany and their children. Marcus and I had reconciled slowly and carefully. He'd apologized for the party, for the years of competition and resentment, for treating me like a threat instead of a sister. I was jealous, he'd admitted during one of our phone calls. You did something I never could. You made your own way. We both made our own way, I'd replied, just in different directions. As I sat at the witness table answering questions from senators about my qualifications and judicial philosophy, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The years of struggle, the moments of doubt. The night I drove away from my family in a car worth more than most people's houses. All of it had led to this moment. 3 weeks later, the Senate confirmed my nomination by a vote of 78 to 22. On January 15th, I was sworn in as the Honorable Maya Sterling, United States District Judge for the District of Vermont. The ceremony was held in the federal courthouse where I'd spent the last 8 years as a prosecutor. The courtroom was packed with lawyers, judges, family, and friends when the chief judge administered the oath. I placed my hand on the Bible and repeated the words that would define the rest of my career. I do solemnly swear that I will administer justice without respect to persons, and do equal right to the poor and to the rich, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as a United States District Judge according to the best of my abilities and understanding, agreeably to the Constitution and laws of the United States. So help me God. As I spoke those words, I looked out at the crowd and saw my father in the front row, tears streaming down his face. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the courthouse lobby. Colleagues, friends, and family members congratulated me, shook my hand, and told me how much they looked forward to appearing before me. But the moment I'll never forget came when court security announced, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Maya Sterling." The entire room stood, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. Not as Harrison Sterling's daughter, not as Marcus Sterling's sister, but as Maya Sterling, federal judge, defender of justice, woman who'd earned her place in the world. Have you ever had to choose between peace and family? Sometimes the most powerful revenge is walking away. But sometimes, if you're patient enough, if you're strong enough, if you're willing to believe in yourself even when others don't, you find something better than revenge. You find vindication. Marcus never apologized for that night at first, but he didn't need to. His humiliation was complete the day he had to address me as Your Honor in my own courtroom. Some lessons are learned and silenced out. As for the charger, I bought it back 2 years later. It's parked in my garage now, a reminder that sometimes the best gifts are the ones you give yourself. If my story resonated with you, hit like, subscribe to Silent Revenge, and share your truth in the comments. Because sometimes justice whispers and still echoes forever.